Well, hey there, friends. Welcome back to the Scale My Ecom Store podcast. I'm your host, Kath Langman. And as always, I'm here to help you, the ambitious, innovative, creative, purpose-driven brand founder, to grow your e-commerce business with confidence, with clarity, and with a custom strategy that actually works, which is the important topic today. Now, I want to start today's episode by asking you a very honest question. Where are you at with your sales right now? Have you looked at your sales lately and thought, why is this still not working the way that I imagined it would be by this point in time? Maybe you're feeling a little bit stuck in a cycle of posting nonstop on socials, throwing out the odd discount, sending out some freebies to influencers and content creators, tinkering with your website, spending some money on Facebook ads, and maybe just still not seeing the traction that you were hoping for. And if that sounds a little bit familiar, you're in very good company. I don't want you to feel alone at all. And today's episode is all going to be all about what is really, how to discover what's really holding back your growth and how you can get out of the hustle mode for good. Because here's the truth, more effort isn't always the answer. You don't always need to be working harder to grow. You need to get smarter about things. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how to do that today. I remember some time ago, I would refer to that kind of hustle mode where your efforts are not going anywhere quickly as being a little bit like being the guy wearing the sandwich board out on the street in front of the pizza joint, the ones where, people are trying to advertise their daily specials to people driving past and walking past, and, being that guy while the place across the road is absolutely pumping and that pizza joint is empty. It's pretty demoralizing feeling, right? And, at the end of the day, it does happen to most people at some stage, particularly, when you are a little earlier on in your business growth journey. And it's very easy to fall into this hustle mode. So I want to talk about that one. And it's that way of working and that busyness, that constant busyness where you are working your butt off. You're wearing all the hats in the business. One minute you might be working on an email campaign. The next minute you're creating a reel or some graphics for Instagram. And then the next one you're packing orders, you're answering customer emails and DMs. And then the next minute, you're trying to decode why on earth your ads aren't converting and why so much money is going out and not enough is landing in your bank account. You're spinning so many plates, you could honestly join the circus. And if that wasn't enough, your marketing plan might be sounding a little bit like this. Post three reels this week, do another giveaway, drop a 30% off site-wide sale, and maybe light a candle and pray that someone buys. Sound a bit familiar? And I kind of call this the Instagram stories and a prayer marketing method. I've been there too, although when that was me, Instagram wasn't around. It was maybe Facebook or Google SEO, Google Ads. Anyhow, it's what I see so many incredible brand founders, the creatives, the passionate, the brand founders who are really trying to do things differently, and they're doing so many things right. It feels like they're doing everything, but the growth still feels slow, inconsistent, stuck, or just not where your goals had you by this point in time. And here's the thing, I want you to know it's not your fault. It could be the education that you may have consumed so far has been too generic, courses, workshops, copy paste playbooks, one size fits all strategies. But, when your brand isn't like everyone else's, a cookie cutter approach won't help you scale a high converting, high integrity brand that your customers love to buy from, particularly, at full price without needing constant promos. So how do you figure out what is actually blocking your growth? So let's unpack this a little bit because the real question is if you're doing all the things, why aren't you growing any faster? And so there are six common growth blockers that I am seeing a lot with e-commerce brands at the moment. And the first one is having really unclear brand positioning. Now, it's so easy for people to start a business. Like the actual hurdles to jump over and the pathway to actually opening an e-commerce brand is it's so easy now. It doesn't cost a lot. You can get started very simply without outlaying a whole lot of funds. Of course, you can spend an infinite amount of money starting a business, of course, but the cost to get started these days is not very prohibitive compared to 20 years ago. But what is a little harder is, creating a brand that is really distinctive and that really stands out and being able to communicate that with your audience. Whether this is because tools such as Canva are so easy for everyone to use, not just professional designers, or, perhaps other reasons lead to having somewhat generic looking brands. But, at the end of the day, if your brand blends in instead of stands out, people just aren't going to get why they should buy from you. Uh, there's also a common trap that some people fall into of being kind of people pleasers and, really trying to please everyone with their business and with their brand. And that can kind of water down the individuality or the effectiveness of the branding. I mean, perhaps when we're growing up, particularly as teenagers, we don't really want to be the ones standing out from the crowd. We kind of, want to, it's a bit of an uncomfortable position to be in sometimes when you're young. But as a brand, it's incredibly important. And if you aren't standing out and being able to really communicate your points of difference, both visually as well as in the language that you use and the messaging that you use to communicate your, brand value, then why would anybody connect with your brand? Why would they be attracted to your brand? Why would they want to buy from you? Do they know? I mean, as business owners, we know, we're very familiar with our own products, with our own websites, with, what's great about our products. We know that intuitively, and sometimes it can feel like we say the same things over and over again. And, surely everybody knows this by now. But, if your sales aren't growing, there's probably some kind of a mismatch there. The second really common blocker, particularly this year, as so many platform algorithms have changed dramatically, and a lot of AI algorithms are now in play, is inconsistent or low quality traffic. And, as an e-commerce business owner, obviously you need to have constant and consistent traffic to your website. Now, if your traffic is 100% organic and heavily reliant on your social media, then you are very, very much at the risk and the mercy of the algorithm gods. Let's be honest, they're not exactly the benevolent kind of gods. Uh, you know, we all have to remember that we actually don't own our audiences on social media. Mark Zuckerberg owns most of them, not all of them these days, but organic reach is at an all-time low. Maybe 10% of your followers might see organic content. So it's extremely unreliable, but a traffic strategy also needs to be somewhat mitigating the risk. So you really want to make sure that you have multiple channels at play here. You really want to make sure that you have different types of traffic in order to be scalable and profitable. So I'm not going to dive into this too much in this episode, but certainly in other episodes and blogs, I've spoken in detail about the three kinds of traffic that we all need to have. And there's only three kinds. One being paid, one being owned, and one being earned. Owned means an audience that you own, like your customer database or your subscriber database. Paid is obvious, that's advertising. And then earned would be, any way that you can earn some referrals, whether it is word of mouth, whether it is an influencer, whether it's PR, whether it's search engine optimization, that kind of thing. So, in terms of growing a business, you have to have a really solid traffic strategy that is going to get you consistent and quality traffic. Just boosting posts and relying on socials and sending out the odd email is not going to get you there. Third common growth blocker is low conversion rates. So this happens if you are getting site visitors, so people are coming to your online store and checking you out, but they're leaving, they're bouncing off. So it could be that the quality of traffic is really low, as I just mentioned before. So that can happen if the targeting or the content that you're sharing in order to drive traffic, whether that's organic content, whether it's advertising, whatever, if the content is, the messaging is off and it's not going to engage with the right kind of quality audience, or the targeting is really off and you're pulling in the wrong audience that way, or you're just doing something kind of scattergun, like boosting. So, they might be multiple reasons why you are getting poor quality traffic and that's going to bounce off. But also the content on your website itself is incredibly important. So for example, a lot of the time people come into the homepage, that might be the first place that they visit on your website, their, initial destination, and then they may or they may not proceed to a product page. But let's say, for instance, that they do. If what's on your product page is not communicating the product value in an impactful, meaningful way, then you'll have a very low add to cart rate. And you have to think of this it is like a funnel where, at the awareness stage, you're always going to have the most people there. Then people interact with your brand. So that would be at the consideration stage. And then the purchase stage is obviously when they buy and check out. Now, at the the consideration stage, would be when they're on your product page. And if you don't have enough people at that stage and they're not moving through, then you're going to have a very low converting website. So there's a few different reasons why people may not add to cart and then convert. Like I said, it could be the content that's on your product page. It could be something else. It could be, surprise things happening at the checkout, like postage that they weren't expecting. It could be, you need to work on some flows in your Klaviyo account. It could be something else. So, there's leaking revenue somewhere if you have a really low or kind of non-existent conversion rate. The fourth blocker that I want to mention here is no real marketing or promotional calendar. Now, if you're running just a couple of ads here and there, or maybe just sending random email blasts that you think of at the last minute, you're not running an actual strategy. You're playing digital whack-a-mole there. And at the end of the day, if what you are putting out is ad hoc and last minute and not thought through, so lacking the kind of strategy where you have a target or a goal and you've planned out all of the steps in advance. Just as a side note, if you haven't got a copy of my campaign and launch, I've got a guide and a template as a bundle that you can grab. You can get that at catherinelangman.com/launch, and that'll help you kind of understand the step-by-steps there. But you have to have a consistent marketing and promotional calendar throughout the year to maintain that consistency. The thing about scaling a profitable e-commerce brand is that we need to always have marketing and advertising going out that's going to bring new customers in. And we also have to have marketing and advertising content that is designed to bring existing customers back and to increase that returning customer rate. Because if we're trying to grow a business based off just one order per customer, it's very difficult to do that profitably. for a multitude of reasons that aren't really part of this topic today either. Again, refer to some of my other podcasts and blogs to find out more about why we need that loyalty rate there. But there's multiple ways to do that. We can sell more of the same product to the same customers. We can sell more of the same product to new customers. We could sell new products to the same customers or new products to new customers. All of those strategies have different approaches and different levels of ease or difficulty as well. And, different strategies are going to be relevant to different brands depending on your, product category. Are you a consumable product, a non-consumable product, like, something that people can keep indefinitely, and, many other reasons as well. Fifth growth blocker is super, super common, especially lately, and that is discount dependencies. If your customers only ever buy from you when there's a big discount code on offer, then you've probably accidentally trained them to not pay full price. And, I do totally understand why brand owners fall into this situation, because if you have started a business because you've had an amazing product idea and you don't have knowledge or skills about marketing and about communications and about selling the value of your product, then you've probably landed on using discounts because that is an easy thing to implement and it generally works. It doesn't actually work for 100% of brands, believe it or not. There are definitely some brands out there with customers who are not price sensitive, but that's not an accident either. That is a very intentional pricing strategy. And, if you are in that situation where you have accidentally trained your customers to wait for a code and to never pay full price, it's not going to be the sort of thing that you can fix just at the click of a finger or the press of a button, but you can fix it. It is something that, with the right strategies implemented, you can actually overcome that and move towards for the first time, perhaps building that kind of brand value where your customers just absolutely love the value of what you sell and they aren't clamoring for discounts or just holding off waiting for discounts. And then the final growth blocker that I see commonly is having no metrics-driven plan. And this can happen if you are not using your own data and analytics to guide your decisions and you are actually just really flying blind. In that scenario, which is very common, again, if you've never owned or run or scaled up an e-commerce business, which, by definition, it involves, digital everything. We're operating this online. So if you're not accustomed to interpreting and understanding and using the metrics, the data, and the analytics from your online shopping platform, whether it's Shopify or something else, and from all of your marketing and advertising platforms, we need to be using that information and the results that we're generating over time to inform our decisions moving forward. It's a process of constant improvement, right? And so if you're not doing that, you are actually flying blind and your growth then becomes a guessing game. And, I used to always kind of internally groan a little bit when people would say to me, I'm not a planner, I just do stuff, in their business. And, I think during COVID boom times that worked a treat because everybody was buying online and it was just a little bit like fishing in a barrel. It was super easy. But now, of course, it's not like that these days. It's a little bit harder to grow those sales. And so a lot of founders that I speak to, they'll say they think their answer to growing their business is, I just need more traffic, or I just need to work harder by posting more content, or, running more offers and things like that. But what you really need is a proper diagnosis and a plan that is tailored to your brand, based on what is actually going on in your business and also based on your own numbers, your own margins, your pricing, your profit margins. Is it a brand and a product that does invite repeat purchases like a consumable, or is it not? I mean, there's so many different um, scenarios that require a unique solution for it to work effectively. And so this is precisely why we have created a really fantastic tool. It's our e-commerce growth diagnostic, and which is like a quiz. Now, before you roll your eyes and go, "Oh, not another quiz," it's not like those BuzzFeed quizzes and things like that that you see on social media. So let me stop you right there. It's not some kind of cutesy personality quiz like, what kind of business goddess are you? This is a custom-built AI-powered diagnostic tool, and it's designed to help you to uncover what is really blocking your brand's growth. And it gives you a personalized game plan on how to fix it. So there are 11 fun, yet very intuitive questions. So, it's not going to take you a really long period to do it. You can do it on your phone while you're waiting for your coffee to brew. Each question is designed to identify where your strategy is strong and also where it's weak, where you're leaking revenue. You'll get a personalized result profile at the end, and then and that will give you it'll give you guidance customized based on where you're at right now. And then the coolest part, this is an absolute game changer. You also get to access our revenue growth calculator. And this is an interactive tool where you literally plug in your brand's metrics, like your conversion rate, traffic, average order value, but also things like, how many products in your collection or in your range, is it a one-time buy or a multi, consumable type product? So quite a lot of context built into this calculator, and then it will show you exactly how much extra revenue you could be making when you fix those weak points that the diagnostic uncovers. And it literally gives you, the list of things that you need to fix, essentially. So it's kind of like Google Maps for your business. It's super cool. Now, I want to tell you a brief story here just to illustrate how useful it is to get this kind of a diagnostic. And so I want to tell you about one of our clients, Shayna. She runs an incredible eco-conscious homewares brand. And when she first came to us, she was really stuck. She's been stuck at the same low five-figure monthly revenues for a long time. She'd never sort of broken past that. She was doing everything, beautiful Instagram content, solid product range. She was running paid ads. Website looked good, but she just hadn't been able to break through that kind of barrier. And so she was stuck at the stage that I like to call the plateaued pro. And we produced a personalized plan for her. It showed her where she was leaking sales and what she needed to do about it. We helped her to roll out a proper sales system that incorporated all of the different traffic channels that she needed to have. Really got dialed in her email automation to automate a lot of those sales, dialed in her conversion rate, launched much more appropriate and high converting paid advertising strategy to drive traffic and sales. And after about 3 months, she'd scaled by more than double. And that was without running any kind of big store-wide discount sales. So through the process, she got clarity. She felt confident in her plan, and she felt like she was finally in control of her growth, and she knew what levers to pull in order to achieve the goals that she was setting. Which is absolutely incredible. So if you have been feeling stuck in your business, maybe if your brain feels a little bit like a Pinterest board of ideas, or maybe a little bit like my Chrome internet browser window that's got 100 tabs open, and you just want someone to tell you what you need to actually do to grow, then take the quiz. It's actually free. It will only take you about 3 minutes, and I promise that it will give you some clarity. So if you want to go ahead and do that for yourself and for your business, the URL to find it is productpreneurmarketing.com/quiz. So that's our e-commerce growth diagnostic. I'm going to include the link to that in the podcast show notes for this episode as well, because I understand productpreneur is not the easiest word to remember how to spell. Like entrepreneur, but with product at the front, right? And so do the diagnostic. You're going to get your personalized growth plan plus access, like I said, to the revenue growth calculator so that you can literally map your numbers to your next level revenue goal. And once you've got your result, you'll have the option to book in for a free brand growth session with myself or my team of growth experts here. Absolutely no pressure, no pitch, just a really smart strategy tailored to your brand. So that's it for today's episode. I do hope that you found it a little bit helpful and maybe a little bit entertaining at times. If you enjoyed it, make sure you hit subscribe. Maybe share this episode with a founder friend who's in hustle mode right now and you think they could benefit from diagnosing what's going on there. I'm sure that they'll thank you. Otherwise, look forward to being in your ears again on the show next week. Bye for now.